I'm Mark Andrews, tight end for the Baltimore Ravens, and you're listening to the Fantasy Whisperers podcast.
What's up, Whisper Nation? Big Travy, Johnny Game Time Hicks, and the woman behind the glass, all here on this Monday episode of Week 2 recap right here, 76th episode of the Fantasy Whisperers. Let's get it.
Yes, we're back again.
Hey, let's pump up the volume.
Right here.
What's up, Whisper Nation? It's Monday, September 16th, and you're listening to episode 76 of the Fantasy Whispers with your host, Johnny Game Time Hicks, Big Travy, and me, Chelsea. If you want to follow the show, you can do so on Twitter at TF Whispers. You can also find us on YouTube and Instagram at The Fantasy Whispers. And you should definitely visit the website, thefantasywhisperers.com, because we've got articles, latest episodes, rankings, and new for 2019, we have our Patreon account. You can help support the show by joining us as a patron of the Fantasy Whispers, where you'll gain access to a ton of bonus content. So head on over to patreon.com and search the Fantasy Whispers today.
We're back.
Week 2, baby.
Week 2 is,
I guess,
now. Well, pretty much.
Technically, it's week 3, right? So week 2's already gone. We've already forgotten about it. Well, I guess we got Monday night, so maybe
we do have Monday night, but
and I need a big Monday night tonight.
Oh man,
some of us are trying to forget about week 2.
Yeah, exactly.
I guess that's what you're saying.
Yeah, put it in the past. You're either waiting for a good Monday night to bring you into week 3, feeling good, or you're trying to put Monday night. You're hoping that game goes final.
Right.
Yeah.
Right now.
Just be done.
Yeah, just like me. I needed to just go final.
Just end your pain.
Yeah.
Well, what a week 2 we had. I mean, some wild stuff. I was watching the Sunday night game, and they said, not as many touchdowns as week 1, that's for sure. But week 2 did have its own exciting, the Chiefs just smoking people left and right.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, that's frightening.
That Eagles-Falcons game last night.
Oh, great. That was a gem.
What
Sunday
a way to end
game.
a Sunday.
And for a weird game, too. You saw a lot of picks by both quarterbacks. You saw a lot of defensive plays there.
A lot of injuries shaking up the offense.
Tons of injuries, and I'm sure we'll get into some of those.
Yeah, we'll get into that in a second.
But as always, this is our recap show. We like to dive into those big storylines every week and just kind of give you a feel for how we're feeling, our instant reaction to a lot of this stuff, and try to give you an outlook going forward for the rest of the year, or at least for the next few weeks. But Johnny, before we jump into that, we did have a nice review left for us on our podcast. Guys, if you can go over to the Apple Podcast app or the Google Podcast or even Spotify and leave us a review, we would greatly appreciate it. It really does a lot for us and really helps us continue to bring you that great content. So, Johnny, let's give a little shout out here to a review we had.
All right. So this came from, as you alluded to, the Apple Podcast platform here. We got These Guys Have It. 5-star review. If you want, this was by Terrence Coker. If you want to win your league, the Fantasy Whisperers are the podcast for you. Highly knowledgeable, entertaining, and all-around enjoyable. Definitely highly recommend, if I can speak on this Monday morning, the Fantasy Whisperers. So we greatly appreciate that review. Thank you so much, Terrence Coker, for leaving it. And like Travis said, if you want us to read your review on our show, please go over to the Apple App Store and leave a 5-star and a review, and we will surely read it live, right, Big Travy?
Yeah, I think we got this guy fooled, man. Highly knowledgeable. He clearly hasn't seen our fantasy rosters, so.
Well.
Yeah, but if we can help him with his, man.
I mean, that's what it is. Like, look,
much love to you, Terrence.
All those people that play with me in multiple leagues, that's the reason why I'm doing so bad, because I just give it all up for the Whisper Nation.
Everyone knows our secrets by now, that they just take all of our players.
Just take the sleepers, and then I get nothing. So,
and we get left with all the okay players.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All the crumbs. Well, speaking of crumbs, we've got to read through the breadcrumbs here for all these injuries that are happening here.
It's been a week.
It's been a week.
Part of giving you a recap and an outlook of going forward is looking what we've got going on in the injury landscape. And so to do that, we're going to bring in Chelsea here with the news and notes brought to you by Fanatic. So Chelsea, take it away.
That's right. It's time for news and notes from around the NFL, brought to you by Fanatic. That's FANATIQ. That's where fantasy meets IQ. Fanatic has done some amazing work to their app this offseason. They've got articles, podcast episodes, and player stats, and beat writers even all up in their app. So you could head on over to the App Store on your Apple device and download that today. And yeah, it's been a busy week for injuries, so let's just jump right into it.
Let's do it.
Michael Gallup this morning, y'all. He's undergoing an MRI. Travis, what do you think about that knee injury?
So there's not a lot of news on whether this is a precautionary knee injury or a precautionary MRI, or if it's just something happened in the game. I didn't happen to see anything glaring that happened in that game, and I love Gallup, so this is just something to monitor here. Upgrade to Randall Cobb if Gallup were to miss extended time. We've seen him have some rapport already with Dak Prescott.
Should players just be getting precautionary MRIs, full body scans after every game?
At this rate, yes.
It make me feel better.
Actually, well, some of these guys probably don't want to. Some of them like to play through stuff, so they probably just don't want to. The team will end up shutting them down. They'll just won't want to play. But yeah,
that's right.
At this point, there's a lot of stuff going on.
A lot of stuff going on with the Eagles offense. We got two notable injuries to their receiving core. And as an Eagles fan, I'm crying my eyes out. We got Deshaun Jackson, who exited week 2 against the Falcons with a groin injury, and Alshon Jeffrey left with a calf injury. Oof. What do I have to do? What's happening with the Eagles, Johnny?
Both of these guys are definitely you want to keep these guys monitored. They are, every week flex plays if they're playing. Definitely, downgrade to Carson Wentz if these guys do miss an extended amount of time. We saw how Carson Wentz struggled in that game against Atlanta because he didn't have all of his pass weapons. I mean, man, they were signing people in the crowd to go out there and suit up because they were getting so low on wide receivers and things like that. So definitely keep this monitored going further. You never like to see, soft tissue injuries, especially to two guys who have had a past of and a history of those two kinds of injuries. So keep this monitored. We'll keep you monitored as well. Whisper Nation.
That's right. I'm still waiting for an injury report for Carson Wentz to pop back up. Something about those ribs. I mean, they wrapped him up in the tent.
The concussion. He had some things that were.
There were so many injuries this past weekend. I almost needed to go to the doctor to get myself checked up because I thought certainly I had gotten something too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Devin Singletary definitely left the game with an injury, right?
So sad.
Hamstring injury after a big game. He had 57 yards and a touchdown before he left with that hamstring injury. Travis, what do we think about the Bills situation?
Well, he was definitely the most explosive runner for the Bills, and he has been all year in the 2 games that we've gotten. But the good news here is that Singletary was on the sidelines with his helmet on. He did not seem to be – he seemed to be ready to go back in. Maybe the coaching staff precautionarily – is that a word? Took him out.
Now it is.
It is now. And so I think, Gore did get run here, but I think they're comfortable giving the ball to both these guys, even though Singletary is a guy that, is a breakout waiting to happen in that offense just based on volume and what he's shown so far.
Did you hear Josh Allen tell reporters that there's no longer 3 New York teams? There's only 1.
Oh,
yeah.
Dang.
Wow.
Loved it. All right.
Ice cold killer.
Let's look at a team that may have seriously taken some steps backwards. We got James Conner and Ben Roethlisberger with some notable injuries. And I know we're going to talk about this team a little bit later on, but look, James Conner exited with a knee injury, and Ben Roethlisberger, well, we're waiting on news to see about some elbow surgery this morning. I mean, Johnny, tell me what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, it was a non-contact injury for Ben Roethlisberger. He just threw it and then immediately grabbed his elbow. Never a good sign when a quarterback does that. And James Conner, I don't know the full extent of this. Big Travy, do you know the extent of the James Conner injury and how serious that looked? I did not catch this. I can't
find a ton of news on it either way. I know that he exited the game. They didn't bring him back in, but I'm not seeing a ton of basically Tomlin said in the post game he'll be evaluated. So I imagine we'll get more news today. So by the time you're listening to this, hopefully we've got some more news for you up on Instagram or Facebook through our Instagram or Facebook stories. But yeah, this is this is sad stuff for a Steelers team that continues to get a lot of down arrows pointing at it now after 2 weeks.
And I know Mike Williams exited last week with a knee injury and was, downgraded all week, was told he's only going to be in for red zone targets. And then we saw an explosive week out of Mike Williams despite a knee injury. So let's just keep our fingers crossed. James Conner's looking at a similar situation.
Please.
Samuel would be, the guy that you would want.
Oh yeah, Jalen Samuels will be. We'll have him in the waiver wire article, which will drop Tuesday. You'll definitely want to go to thefantasywhispers.com and check that out because Jalen Samuels will be a hot ad this week.
Yep.
And we got one more injury before we jump into the full meat of the episode. Drew Brees with a hand, a thumb, a finger. What's going on with Drew Brees, Johnny?
Oh my gosh, this looks heartbreaking watching him. He looked, he hit his hand on Donald's, pass rusher. Aaron Donald was coming after him. He was following through. I don't know if he broke it, he jammed it really badly. I don't know, but he immediately tried to go over and pick up a football. Could not do that. Teddy Bridgewater came into the game and played the rest of the game. And, oh, man, it just looked heartbreaking for Drew Brees, which this is probably one of his, if not his last season. So hopefully it's not a very long absence, but we did get information today that it'll probably be a while. What's with this too, by the way, is this is like a new designation that all these teams are coming out with that, these players can be out a while. Like, what does a while mean? 2 weeks? A month? The whole season? Give me
Nobody
more context
knows.
than this. Can we please get away from this a while thing? They said it about Tyreek Hill last week, and this is like the fourth time they've said this year. I'm a little frustrated.
It's like how the media does, like nowadays, like they just want to get a story out. So in order to not be wrong, they'll just say,
it's been a while. No, they're just all saying, they're all just listening to Nickelback, dude. It's been a while.
I hope not. But
well, that's it with the news and notes. And I'm sorry we didn't manage to get through that without Johnny singing Nickelback. I promise I'll do better next week.
Hey, they all love it. I know they do.
I don't know that they all do. But anyways, we're moving on here. And our first topic has to do with those last few injuries we were talking about because they are significant here. And we saw, in the case of Drew Brees, when Drew Brees went down, how this offense stagnated. We saw with the Steelers how, the Steelers were not able to get that win without Ben Roethlisberger in the lineup. And so it's really about, Johnny, the Steelers and Saints outlooks going forward. And what should Whisper Nation be thinking? Is it just temper expectations? Is it cut bait? Obviously, we need to have more information come out on these quarterbacks. But just kind of run us through your outlook for these two teams.
Yeah. So for me, you look at the Steelers' next 4 games: San Francisco, Cincinnati, Baltimore, and the LA Chargers. For them, if Big Ben misses a lot of time, pretty much you're just gonna be interested in James Conner if he remains healthy. Or is able to come back. Juju, of course, you draft him high. He should still be a stud. He saw a good amount of targets still with the backup. Vance McDonald is a guy that now I think becomes more of a security blanket. I think he gets an uptick here. But as far as anybody else on the Pittsburgh Steelers, I'm okay dropping him, honestly, depending on how big of news Big Ben will be out. If Big Ben is going to miss, 2 months, then James Washington no longer interesting to me, and Deontay Johnson, I think he is more of an
Moncrief struggled with drops even again this week.
So I'm not really excited for anybody else there. It would just be Juju and James Conner or Curtis Samuel, and then Vance McDonald for that situation.
Jalen Samuels, yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, so what about for the Saints? Are you even more concerned for the Saints here?
I really am more concerned on the Saints standpoint. Drew Brees is the engine that makes that thing go. We talk about Alvin Kamara and how great he is, but we saw what effect not having Drew Brees in the game had on him yesterday. He had one of his worst games in the last 2 years yesterday. So I definitely am concerned there. The teams could probably, stack the box a little bit more. And Teddy Bridgewater is a competent quarterback. Is he competent enough to run this elusive offense the way that Sean wants it to be ran? Sean Payton. I don't think he does, and we kind of saw that last night.
We'll see. It'll be interesting what they do here with Teddy Bridgewater or Taysom Hill and what they're trying to do. You saw Taysom Hill still get used out as a wide receiver, which is kind of perplexing to me. If you had Brees go down and Bridgewater struggling, why you would put Taysom Hill out as a receiver that he could possibly get injured. You need him healthy. So
yeah,
I don't know. They like him as an overall football player, so we'll see there. I did want to just talk about what we saw out of these players with a game pretty much dominated in snaps by Teddy Bridgewater. We saw Michael Thomas finish as the wide receiver 21 on the week. Still nice targets, 13 targets, 10 catches for 89 yards. So of these skill position players for the Saints, Michael Thomas kind of retains his value the most. I think he will be a safety blanket for Bridgewater. Alvin Kamara, on the other hand, and Latavius Murray, who was basically a no-show for this team. Alvin Kamara, RB36 on the week, 6.5 half PPR points, only 13 carries for 45 yards and 1 reception for 15 yards. There were several plays I saw yesterday where Alvin Kamara was wide open in the flat and Teddy Bridgewater refused to throw it there and overthrew or underthrew the wide receiver. So there are situations here where, yes, he got thrusted into this game. The Rams are no team to slouch at. I mean, this is not a great ideal matchup for him to go into to try and take over the reins here. You look at Bridgewater, who signed with the Saints, maybe thinking like, I don't have to play ever. And now he does. And now you're looking at, Jared Cook, who you would think maybe would be a safety blanket, only 3.5 half PPR points. I'm a little bit concerned outside of Michael Thomas, and I would temper expectations. I wouldn't try to go crazy and trade away Alvin Kamara right now, but I would be looking at what this team does in the next few days. And obviously we need the news from Drew Brees. On the other side,
just real quick, Travis, also you got to a lot of their value was because they were going to be in the red zone so often, and with Drew Brees not there, I think that their red zone offense, they're not in the red zone as much, so it might be more difficult to get those points.
I agree 100%. So, and that's similar with the Steelers, right? Where we move over to the Steelers. Juju finished as wide receiver 34 on the week, 8 targets, 5 catches for 85 yards. Not a terrible performance. We just had a ton of good wide receivers, and he now falls to wide receiver 31 in PPR and number 36 in standard. I'm a little bit concerned here for Juju. He's lived his life with Ben as his quarterback. I don't know what it is without him. Obviously, we saw 8 targets, 5 catches, but we will see what Mason Rudolph likes to do going forward. I have little doubt, or I'm not very certain that Ben's going to be able to come back from this. I think this is something that probably he'll have surgery on. I mean, they're talking maybe Tommy John.
Yeah, that's immediately what I thought when I saw it was Tommy John, which is not good.
With that being said, you have to downgrade Juju's outlook for this year at least. I don't think that means, like, a lot of the times what that means for you is temper expectations and be looking to upgrade other parts of your roster to try and make up the points you would have got from a higher drafted player. I don't necessarily means that you should try and cut bait on Juju. Let's see what Mason Rudolph can do with him. But Vance McDonald here is actually, there's a silver lining in all of this, because Vance McDonald got 7 targets, 7 catches, 38 yards, but 2 touchdowns, and both of those touchdowns were thrown by Mason Rudolph. And so if you're a Vance McDonald truther, as we have been for a lot of this offseason coming in, he was one of our breakout guys. He actually, I think he may get an upgrade here, as we did not see Ben love to target him as much as we thought, and Mason Rudolph did as a young quarterback trying to find a safety here. And so, Johnny, I would just say the big thing is gather more information on these quarterback injuries and temper expectations on the skill players. And then,
we'll keep sniffing it out. I mean, Drew Brees is landing in LA this morning for a hand thing. So, we're going to be at the window of that doctor's appointment, just staring in there, seeing what's going on.
I drove him to the appointment. So I'll get the inside scoop here. No, our next, we're going to stick with the quarterback theme here for our next topic, because I don't think we could get away with an episode without talking about Patrick Mahomes here, Johnny. We thought coming into the year this guy was going was going to regress, which he technically did, because as Tony Romo eloquently pointed out yesterday, he had 10 touchdowns through 2 games last year. He's only got 8, I believe, through 2 games this
What
year.
a regression.
Yeah, and that's exactly what Romo said. He said, "Oh, he's regressed. He's not the same player anymore." No, but literally, like, Patrick Mahomes looked dynamite throwing deep ball as somebody, because I played against him in our league of record, and I watched every single touchdown that happened. 30 for 44, Johnny, 443 yards and 4 touchdowns. They've added speed at all these, it doesn't matter if Tyreek Hill's gone, because McCole Hardman's a dynamite speed threat. They've got Jamarcus Robinson out there burning people. Sammy Watkins in week 1. Travis Kelce. I mean, the list goes on and on here for these skill positions that they have. And right now, Mahomes is making people who drafted him in the early rounds look like geniuses, because he's continuously returning that value week in and week out.
Well, here's what's even more remarkable about what he did yesterday, Travis. He had 0 touchdowns in the first quarter, which he had never had at all. They had at least scored 1 touchdown or some points last year. He didn't score any points in the first quarter. In the second quarter, he scored all 4 passing touchdowns. In the third quarter, he had 0 touchdowns. In the fourth quarter, he had 0 touchdowns. So it was kind of a weird day. If you're just looking at the stat line, you would see that, Pat Mahomes, another great game, which he did have, but it came in a really weird kind of way, kind of like Kyler Murray last weekend, where all of his points came in the fourth quarter and overtime. You just never know. That's why you say, don't panic in the beginning, right when quarterbacks are, throwing touchdowns or whatever, if you're down in the beginning of your game. It's a long day. But, yeah, Pat Mahomes looking like he's going to be a very nice return on your value where you got him. Again, he's still not the number 1 quarterback right now in fantasy. That's Lamar Jackson. So that's why we do tend to tell you we'll hold out on quarterback. But early on, you're certainly happy with your investment in Pat Mahomes. So you're going to keep rolling him out there. Don't question starting him, because this guy is legit. He's super legit.
Are there wide receivers on that team that people should be thinking of? I mean, with Tyreek Hill down, I'm sure the waiver wire has got some Chiefs names on it.
Yeah, so this week, obviously, we'll have that waiver wire article once again up at thefantasywhispers.com. So make sure you're over there smashing on that thing on Tuesday if you're listening to this later. But yes, Demarcus Robinson's going to be a huge add. Obviously, McCole Hardman, if he hasn't been swooped up yet, he might have been swooped up last week because of the Tyreek Hill injury.
Yeah.
But these guys are guys that, listen, any one of these guys could be his favorite target. Or in the case of yesterday, Watkins took a back seat, but these 2 other guys took the front seat. And so I think that can interchange every day. You're going to have a lot of situations, though, where I think it's going to be hit and miss, unless it's Kelce. Kelce continues to be a staple in the offense, and other guys get theirs, but they can interchange. And so, is it worth it? Yes.
Yeah,
you can plug that flex in and win your week. So you need to be swooping these guys up if you can.
I just want a piece of this offense. We know it's going to be super efficient. Look, these are the next 4-week matchups. You've got the Ravens. You got that one's probably their most difficult. You got the Lions, Colts, and Texans. So you're not really too nervous about any of those defenses except for maybe Baltimore. But Kyler Murray just hung up 350 on this Baltimore defense. So, you're going to roll Pat Mahomes out there. You're going to roll out a lot of these role players.
Are you telling me for week 3 we get Lamar Jackson versus
Yes,
Patrick
and I am
Mahomes?
so excited. I wish they would flex this to the Sunday night game, because
the Rams and the Browns are Sunday night. That's another great one.
That's another good one. But Pat Mahomes and Lamar, that's going to be a great one. All right, we got another topic here, right?
So we're moving on. We're moving on to Dalvin Cook. Dalvin stays dominant here.
Dalvin Cook and some fools. That's what he's doing.
Yeah, in a game where the Vikings took a while to get going, Dalvin did not. Dalvin was the only Viking that was awake for the entire game. He had 20 carries for 154 yards and 1 touchdown. Johnny, on the year now, 2 games in, Dalvin Cook has 41 rushes, 265 yards, 5 catches for 46 yards. He's got 3 rushing touchdowns, and he's the overall RB2.
Stud.
people that got Dalvin Cook in the late first round, early second have got to be so giddy right now because they are sitting here, not Saquon Barkley, not Ezekiel Elliott, not Christian McCaffrey, not Alvin Kamara, but Dalvin Cook is the guy you wanted in the first round. And so, Johnny, talk to me a little bit about Dalvin Cook and if you think this is going to continue.
So we never really questioned this guy's talent, right? Like that was never the concern when it came to drafting Dalvin Cook. The talent was always there. He always looked great. It was just his injury concern. Now it's just 2 weeks in, so keep that monitored. But he's looking fantastic. And if you did get him in the first round, it's looking like the steal of the round so far through 2 weeks. Next couple of weeks, they have the Raiders, then they play the Bears, and then the Giants, and then the Eagles. So again, kind of like Kansas City, you're not really afraid of too many of those matchups. Maybe against the Bears, you're a little afraid of that one. Maybe the Eagles, we'll see. They're having a lot of injuries over there. So, Dalvin Cook continues to be a stud. I think he's going to ball out this year. That offense is going to revolve around him as long as he is healthy and as long as he is out there. And downgrade to some of these pass catchers and things like that, because this is the Dalvin Cook show, and I hope we all get our popcorn and we sit back and relax and enjoy this. Unfortunately, I don't have any shares of Dalvin Cook this year because it just didn't work out for me, but Dalvin Cook is going to be a very nice piece. And
yeah, I want to talk a little bit about what you said there, downgrading the pass catchers, and let's just take a look at it. They only threw it 27 times, 8 targets to Adam Thielen, 7 to Stephon Diggs.
did have
Diggs
the long touchdown.
Diggs did save his day, but like 7 targets to Diggs, he only had the 1 catch.
Yeah.
So 1 catch for 49 yards for that touchdown. That's awesome, but like Johnny said, you're not excited about the volume here that they're getting because this offense is going to they didn't get that passing game going until Dalvin Cook continued to wear down the Packers defense. They started some play action stuff. You look at Adam Thielen, 5 receptions for 75 yards. I think it's very important to look at these. These were guys that were both in the top 10 in targets last year. Only getting 8 and 7 targets per game is not going to put them back in that range, which means you drafted these guys as borderline wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2s. And I think you're going to get wide receiver 2 numbers, wide receiver 3 numbers more often than not. And that's a little bit scary for where you drafted them. So if you wanted to, I'm not saying trade these guys away, but once again, temper expectations on what you're going to get out of these pass catchers in Minnesota.
And I just want to add, because I'm worried about the Vikings offense in total. I think without the wide receivers really engaged, Dalvin Cook can't do it. We haven't seen him play a full season yet. And look, if you take away one play, right, just one play and leave this man with 19 carries, he doesn't get 154 yards. He gets 79 yards and no touchdowns, right? That was a 75-yard touchdown run. So I'm saying that's 3.9 yards per carry that guy got yesterday if you take away that one significant play. And then what is that Vikings offense yesterday?
Right.
So,
I mean, it could have got real ugly real fast because it was 21-0 before Cook busted off that run. He is capable of that, though. He is a home run hitter.
Speed, wow.
And we've seen him do that before. So you can take that away as an outlier, but you can also say that Dalvin Cook is a guy that hits the home run, and he's done it before, did it in the preseason, done it a couple times this year already.
Let's hope he can do it a full season.
Yeah. Well, and the Bears game will be a good litmus test because the Bears have been very solid against the run so far this year and over the last year.
Travis.
But moving on.
Real quick. So he's got five targets and 5 completion on the year. He's about 12% market share. Does that concern you in the reception area? Because that was a big plus to his game that we talked about coming into the season, was his ability to catch out of the backfield. But it doesn't look like they're necessarily using him to that extent. About 2.5 catches per game. Do you think that will go up?
Well, we'll see. Like I said, in the Bears game, for example, if they start shutting him down as a runner, will they then go to lean on him as a pass catcher to try and balance that out? So we'll kind of get a sense for that. Right now, they haven't needed him as a pass catcher because they're giving him the ball 20 times and he's scoring 5 touchdowns on the year or 3 touchdowns on the year. But moving on to the Bears, we were talking about the Bears being able to stop Dalvin Cook. But what about the Bears backfield, Johnny, which seems to have settled down a bit, and David Montgomery seems to be getting the opportunity that everybody wanted him to get coming in, or at least in week 2. Johnny, let me just break this down for you. They had 29 carries as a team. David Montgomery had 18 of those. The next highest was Tariq Cohen with 4. Now, Montgomery only finished with 62 yards and that 1 touchdown, 3.4 yards per carry. Not lovely, but Broncos are a tough defense. I think we're more encouraged by the fact that he saw 18 carries.
Yeah, definitely like the fact that he saw the 18 carries. We were really concerned last week when, we all expected him to get kind of this workload, and he didn't. He came out and, I think Matt Nagy just tried to get too cute, to be honest with you. I think he, tried to spite us fantasy owners who, he's like, oh, you guys think you know what I'm going to do? I'll show you. I'll show you right now. Or maybe, hey, Matt Nagy could have been playing against David Montgomery. And so he was like, screw that. I'm going to only give him 6 touches. And then this week he was like, I don't care. I'm going to really unleash him because I'm not playing him. I'm not playing against him.
Well, that reminds me of Cam Newton on Thursday. Did you see Cam Newton said that Norv Turner drafted Christian McCaffrey in their fantasy football league?
Oh, my God.
And that's why they're not throwing deep anymore?
Makes sense now.
God.
Yeah.
I'm telling you. There needs to be an investigation. NFL, get on this, all right?
Oh, man.
But it's good to see this. I mean, we expected this. That's why we told you guys, don't panic on David Montgomery after 1 week. There was just too much craziness going on. I mean, even Aaron Rodgers looked like garbage last week, and he looked good this week. So you never know from week to week. If that game were to happen week 9, would we have made a big deal about it? Probably not. We would have said, why did he only get 6 touches? But it wouldn't have been like a panic mode. Everyone went into panic mode. So if you're able to buy David Montgomery last week, good for you. Congratulations, because you got a really good running back. I love his outlook on the season. I think he's only going to get better. Listen to these next four weeks, Travis. He plays the Redskins. Not afraid of that one. Minnesota Vikings. All right, that'll be a difficult game. They have a good D-line. Then you got the Raiders, and then the Saints. So Saints defense is looking decent, but I think that Montgomery will have a good next 4 weeks. And you can play him as a flex.
He's kind of the perfect example to run out there. Like, even if these defenses are good, Montgomery is so good at breaking tackles. Like, that is his one redeeming quality. Well, not his one, but he is far superior than a lot of backs that came out of college this year and in the last couple of years in breaking tackles. So I wouldn't be too afraid as long as Montgomery can continue to get the usage he got this week. You're really excited about Montgomery this year. Another guy that we're super excited about this year is friend of the show, Mark Andrews, a.k.a. Mark Mandrews.
He's the man.
Johnny, is Mark Andrews a man or what?
Dude, he is a monster. He is so fun to watch. And, if you listen to us this entire offseason, Mark Andrews was the guy we told you to target. We said, get Mark Andrews. He's going to be a breakout tight end. And he's showing that. So much so, Travis, that I have Mark Andrews and I also have George Kittle on many leagues. And I'm struggling in those leagues where I can only start one. What do I do? Because George Kittle over here is, looking like he's by himself. And Mark Andrews is putting up back-to-back weeks with over 100 receiving yards. He's had a touchdown in both games, one of which was not from Lamar. I get it, but he still scored the touchdown. And then Lamar Jackson was looking for him early and often in this Cardinals game, which I told everybody last week and on the Sunday live show, fire up Mark Andrews against the Cardinals defense. They were giving up a ton of plays to the tight end position. Travis, through 2 weeks, Mark Andrews is getting 28% of this market share here of the reception and the target share for the Baltimore Ravens. I don't see that changing. Maybe a couple percentage points as Hollywood Brown continues to get more and more involved in this offense. But he's a big target. Chelsea alluded to it last week on our show. He's a monster target who has a very big catch radius, and that's what Lamar Jackson needs, and that's what he's going to. That's his security blanket, and they have a real rapport there.
Yeah, 28% is really high.
Yeah.
I do think that that'll even out, but I do think it stays above 20. And I do, Marquise Brown is the only guy on the team receiving more in target market share, but just by a percentage point. So these two guys are really dominating the looks from Lamar Jackson. And that's good news for Lamar Jackson owners, because you've got a deep threat in Marquise Brown that he loves going to, and you've got your safety valve in Mark Andrews that he loves going to. The big body makes him a great red zone threat, as we've seen already. He scored multiple touchdowns. Listen, Mark Andrews will probably be ranked in our top 5 until, otherwise noted, because this guy is going to gobble up targets for what looks to be a really nice offense this year. So keep firing up Mark Andrews.
Rest of season, where do you have Mark Andrews? Top 5?
Yeah, he's got to be in the top 5, right?
Yeah.
If you get over 20% market share as a tight end and you're a touchdown threat, for a guy that, look, if Lamar has a bad game, he's probably still going to Mark Andrews.
You're right.
Whereas if he had a bad game, Marquise Brown maybe takes a hit.
And
game passing.
I think that, and I posted this on Twitter yesterday. Is it that Mark Andrews is taking the role that we thought OJ Howard was going to take?
I don't want to just go there right now because it's too early for me to get depressed in this week. So, but yeah, I mean, that's a great point. Look, I told a lot of people last week on Instagram and Facebook and in the comments, you have to bench OJ at this point. You have to keep benching him until he can prove otherwise, but I wouldn't cut bait just yet. I think he's super talented, and I think you gotta stick through it. But yeah, if you picked up Mark Andrews as a insurance policy, good on you.
Nice.
Another guy that's having a great first 2 weeks, and our final topic for today is John Ross, John the Boss Ross here. Johnny, this guy he just continues to be their big play guy. He's dominating the target market share here, not Tyler Boyd. If you look at that, so 23 targets through 2 weeks. That's 24% of the target market share. I will say my only concern before I let you dive into this a little bit would be that when AJ Green comes back, would we look at a discount to Tyler Boyd or to John Ross? What are your thoughts there?
I'm starting to think that Tyler Boyd might be the guy that's going to fade this year. Unfortunately, I love Tyler Boyd. I think he's a great wide receiver, but we're seeing a real rapport there with John Ross, and I think they're going to continue to give him that role. He's proving that he can do it. He would have had another touchdown reception in this game. He was wide open in the corner of the end zone, and instead he went to Tyler Eifert. Dalton went to Eifert on the underneath, which also scored a touchdown, but Ross was wide open, shaking his hands right behind him, so it could have went to either one. So he could have been having 4 touchdowns. He will get downgraded a little bit when AJ Green comes back, but again, I think that this offense can run 3 wide receiver sets. Remember, the head coach now comes from the LA Rams system, which they run a lot of 3 wide receiver sets. So I can definitely see them all still having a role. But I think out of the 2, like John Ross is really playing really well. The guys trust him. Andy Dalton's starting to trust him. And so I don't think that when AJ Green comes back, he'll cool off a little bit for sure, because you got to make room for AJ Green. But I think it could be at the expense of Tyler Boyd, unfortunately.
Yeah, that seems to make a lot of sense for me, or at least what's going on with these Bengals. Bad defense. They're going to continue to be in shootouts, and John Ross is a big play waiting to happen. Mm-hmm. I would be buying shares of John Ross left and right. But Whisper Nation, we want to know what you think. Make sure you comment below what your favorite moment was of week 2's action, and hit like and subscribe and do that. But before we take off here, Chelsea, did you have any final thoughts for Whisper Nation, for us? Any miscues?
Yeah, I mean, I just want to say, take a minute here, because there was a few other notable performances. I mean, I want to give it up to Larry Fitzgerald. My goodness,
yeah.
over 100
legend.
yards in back-to-back weeks, right? That first week, 114 yards and a touchdown. Then we saw 104 yards again last week. I think that love connection with Kyler Murray could be something. Get Kyler Murray started in his first season in the NFL, maybe on Larry Fitzgerald's last, although we always say that.
Larry Fitzgerald has 27% target market share right now, dominating the targets over there.
And in the red zone, the
that
red
throws
zone.
a ton.
Yeah, in the red zone, they are looking for Fitz all the time. He had literally 3 straight targets on back-to-back red zone attempts yesterday. All the same play, same corner of the end zone, and you couldn't catch one. Sorry, that was a little frustrated.
Love
But
it.
yeah, but Larry Fitzgerald. Hey, talking about a guy who you want to go and target right now that might be on the down low is Larry Fitzgerald. I would go and target him for sure.
Sure. And then look, we saw this NFL preseason was dominated by headlines of Antonio Brown. We couldn't keep away from headlines of Antonio Brown as we snuck into the season. And the guy just got his first touchdown yesterday on the Patriots. We know the NFL is going to be meeting with the woman who made allegations against him this offseason. I don't trust the NFL to get this thing right, but what could this mean for?
What's really weird
fantasy?
too, because it looks like since Deflategate, the league has kind of tried makeup calls with the Patriots.
Yeah,
it seems
it's been
like
real weird.
Josh Gordon, I have no idea why he should be back in the NFL. I love Josh Gordon. I root for him as a person. I have no clue why he's back in the NFL. Like they just let him come back for no reason. So
Baby, come back.
I just don't understand that. And now Antonio Brown gets to play last week. Okay, that's fine. But I want to see what happens with this investigation because I agree with Chelsea. It doesn't like. Are we? I don't know. You look at what he's accused of, and you look at his actions over the last 9 months, and you say, well, no, this makes a lot of sense. And I just want to know what's going to happen here. And look, if you have AB, you got to keep rolling them out there for fantasy. But know that you could have a situation like Ezekiel Elliott a couple years ago where he could be suspended at any moment, and then you could be without that star. So make some contingency plans.
I think that's all I had to say. Thanks.
All right. Well, that's it, Whisper Nation. As always, click like and subscribe to the show. If you want more fantasy football content, which we know you do because you're freaks like us, go over to the fantasywhispers.com. We've got articles. Waiver wire article will be up there. And then, of course, Players Stay Away. And our rankings release every Wednesday. So check those out. For Johnny Game Time Hicks and Chelsea Lee Byers, I'm Big Travy, and we're the Fantasy Whisperers, and we're out. Peace.
Peace.
Thank you for listening to the Fantasy Whisperers podcast. You can hear more from John and Travis on Google Play, SoundCloud, and iTunes. You can also follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at TF Whisperers.